The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of the streaming platforms, public access channels, the Kitty Rose Lifestyle, or the program underwriters.
Tim's on my feet, stomping out the negativity. Everybody not a friend of me. Spread the love, still I move deliberately. Girly face on, but the smile be heavenly. Brooklyn girls, so they love the energy. Love sincerity, so I take the liberty to take them on a journey lyrically. Through hallways and alleys.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray. I am your host, Minister Cat, aka Kitty Rose, and we're back once again another week with some interesting topics to bring to you guys today. So let's get right into it. What is today's topic of the week? Before we go into the topic of the week, you see me by myself. We'll be joined with our special segment coming up the second half of the show. And it's related to this topic of the week. So this topic of the week is when you're feeling depressed or lost. When you're feeling depressed or lost. So why did I want to talk about that today? You know, the last month we've been examining how you have control over creating your own space. I've shown you that by some of my own examples, some of my own testimony of how I've been able to create and control the narrative of my life for the last, I want to say, about 19, almost 20 years, even during COVID. But what I realized is that I was starting to feel depressed, feel lost, really during this last few months of, I guess, what we can call the end of the pandemic part of the COVID, and now getting used to our new normality of what life looks like post-COVID. And I was starting to feel a little sorry for myself because I felt like, you know, I don't really have any consistent income coming in, or by choice. Sometimes I feel like my romantic relationship is shaky. But I realized I was adding to those feelings, not knowing it at the time. So even though I was doing these shows this last month about how business-wise I've been able to stay the course and maintain a level of control, when you're running a business, running a household, living in this world, you are bound to come across feelings when you feel lost and depressed. And none of us, I think, are excluded from having bouts of depression or feeling lost or feeling stuck, not knowing if they're going in the right direction, not knowing what to do next, questioning the decisions one has made or is making. So I was feeling like that these last couple of weeks. And thank you, Jehovah, that I was able to, with the Spirit, with the help of the Holy Spirit, get me out of that. It didn't take away that I was still depressed or felt lost for a couple of days. So we're gonna dive into this conversation just a little bit so that we could touch on it and hopefully get some tools to help us when we are individually going through things of that nature. So let's find out, figure out first, what are some of the behaviors of a depressed person. Let's go to the first clip that I was able to research, and then we'll discuss it when we come back.
Depression is a complex disease. It can take time to find effective treatment. Stats show sticking with treatment is worth it. One study by the National Institutes of Health showed 80% of people improved within just 4 to 6 weeks of starting medication, therapy, or support groups. Healthy lifestyle choices can help too. Eating a good diet and getting enough sleep can strengthen and repair important brain connections. Overcoming depression may become easier in the future. Scientists are learning more about how factors such as genetics influence depression, which may not only help create new drugs, but also make targeted treatment possible, helping someone with depression feel like herself again.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.
I love me some Lester Holt. Again, it's about representation and seeing yourself on television, knowing that you too can be a journalist. So that video helped us to see what are some of the behaviors or how depression can start or marinate or create or begin in one's head. The one thing I want us to remember is, so today is April the 8th, right? We are midpoint of Ramadan. Ramadan, for those that practice Ramadan, you already know this. For those that don't practice Ramadan, I'm not necessarily one who practices Ramadan, but I understand the significance of why Ramadan is important, because it's a spiritual fasting to gain spiritual clarity and draw us closer to the Creator, draw us closer to, for Muslims, Allah, and for folks like myself, to Jehovah God. And the reason why these moments of fasting is important so that we can gain clarity is because when we are depressed, we realize, or we don't realize, that we cannot rely upon our own understanding. The scriptures tells us that in Proverbs, do not lean upon your own understanding. So when the video was talking about therapy or medications, I'm not really big on medications, but the medication that works for me is cannabis. Cannabis allows me to feel relaxed and allows me to multitask where I'm not so agitated with the smallest things that might irritate me. Because when you are depressed, some of the symptoms of overt or suppressed anger develops, right? Or surfaces. These anger traits face aggravated problems during symptomatic periods of depression. So sometimes in these moments where things can get escalated in my head, when I smoke cannabis, it relaxes all the stuff that's running around that I'm adding on to feeling of anxiety, feeling of loss, feeling of being impatient, feeling of sadness, that things seem like they're not going my way. So some of these traits, and the video showed, is feeling sadness, tearfulness, emptiness, and hopelessness. And I'm going to share with you guys, a few weeks ago, I shared that I felt like giving up. And when I felt like giving up, I started to look at some of my own traits so that I can become more aware of, I know these things happen because they don't happen often. Even in the research I read, it says that although depression may occur only once during your life, people typically have multiple episodes. During these episodes, symptoms occur most of the day, nearly every day, and then include all of these other symptoms that we were talking about: feeling anxious, feeling empty, having hopelessness. So when I was doing my own self-evaluation, because again, I don't have them often, but they do happen, and sometimes it could be a couple of days, sometimes it could be a week, sometimes it's just an afternoon. But when it happens, I noticed, or I was starting to notice, that it was happening for me a little too often. And in each time it does happen, again, I needed to have self-reflection on why I was feeling that way, and also adding and trying to realize what time of the year, because the environment, seasons, also contribute to the way that you feel. Winter, summer, fall, all of these things that are happening with the earth also contributes to how you may feel at certain times of the year. So I had to kind of take all that into play and then bring that to you guys to let you know, once again, you're not alone when you feel depressed or lost. Let's go to our first PSA of the evening.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
So let me share a secret with you guys. And in New York, with our 4.7 million neighbors, I don't know how much of a secret this is actually going to be. But the last blowout or the last episode I have, I sent everybody in my family, my children, my mentor, my man, my investors, I sent them a text, I'm done. The Kitty Rose lifestyle is over. I'm done. I'm out of here, right? I took down my home office. I mean, literally, took the desk, put it in another room, took the bullets. I mean, completely disabled, disassembled my home office. And then, like I told you before we went to the PSA, I needed to start to reflect about my behavior when I'm upset. And I kind of started to realize that I'm not going to self-diagnose myself, but in my self-diagnose, I think I'm an extremist. Now, when I looked up in Google the word extremist, I don't fit the Webster's definition of an extremist. But why I felt that I'm an extremist is because when I become depressed, sad, lost, or angry, I attack. And I always feel justified in my attack because I feel like I'm coming from a logical point of view. I'll give you some examples. I will spaz out on someone on social media. I remember in 2021 when my son graduated college, when my son graduated college, my husband made a post that I didn't like on Facebook. And I went ham. I went ham to the point of I've been blocked. I remember another incident where, those that follow me in 2021 when I found out that I got cheated on, I went crazy. I blew up the person's business. I, showed up the girl who called me to tell me that she was sleeping with my man. Like, I went off the chain. Another episode, I break up with my boyfriend, and recently, and I'm on social media like, well, I don't understand why men can't. And again, feeling justified in all of my actions, but realizing that might have been a bit extreme. Last week, my daughter called me, right? And she saw a picture that was in her phone. And the picture was a screenshot of last year I had a stalker online who created a Facebook profile under my name, Kitty Space Rose. Not Kitty Rose because I own Kitty Rose. But they had created this fake Facebook profile. And on the profile, they had one of the posts where they had my husband in the post. And they said, this nigga ain't shit, that. So my daughter, for a quick moment, when she looked at the screenshot and looked at the post, she thought it was me because I have acted in such a way. Then she realized, oh, no. That's not my mother. That's the stalker. But for a half a second, she thought it was me. So when I Googled up extremist, I found intermittent explosive disorder. Let's check and see what that is in my second video.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ryan Fuller, and I'm going to speak to you a little bit about intermittent explosive disorder. So intermittent explosive disorder is a DSM diagnosis. That's a diagnostic statistical manual. That's the guide used by mental health practitioners to diagnose mental health and behavioral health disorders. IED is something diagnosed when an episode that is seemingly impulsive and aggressive, oftentimes involves property destruction, occurs. And usually it's unpredictable. The person does not see this coming on in advance, and the episodes tend to be very infrequent. Now, while there's aggression taking place, it is not necessary at all, in fact, for anger to be present. And that's oftentimes not assumed to be the case. So I want to just repeat that. Intermittent explosive disorders does not require anger to be present. It doesn't mean that it isn't present. It could be, and that does happen. But a person experiencing this sort of impulsive, aggressive behavior may, in fact, not experience anger prior to the event. So it's something to look out for. It's something that requires further research. It's fairly infrequent, so prevalence rates aren't exactly clear. What is important, there's some new evidence that some of the inflammatory markers that are related to heart outcomes have been found to be higher in people with this diagnosis. That's C-reactive protein and interleukin-6. So it definitely is something that requires more scientific research.
So I love how he brought up that you don't have to be angry to have this trait. Now, I haven't been diagnosed with this per se. You guys do know I am in therapy, and I haven't discussed this with my therapist yet, so I haven't been clinically diagnosed. But again, in doing my own self-reflection, and when I saw this video, when I saw that it was something diagnosed when an episode that is seemingly impulsive and aggressive oftentimes involves property destruction, occurs, and is usually unpredictable. My outbursts, I don't necessarily destroy anything, but with my words, it can seem that way. And the reason why, again, I use my own life as a testimony is because for the most part, I think I have things, pretty together. I have a pretty amazing life and great people around me, spiritually conscious. I walk with the Lord. So even some people who are conscious, who are connected spiritually, can still have these bouts of anger or feeling lost or depression simply because of the world we live in. Let's go to the second PSA of the evening, and then we'll talk about it some more.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how's sketches, ready? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You didn't turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, backpack kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
To the left. To the right. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
I play this PSA over and over because communication is key, not only with each other, but most importantly with our children. Finding ways to meet them where they're at so that we can engage in conversation with them. Right now, so many of our youth are vaping, but outside of vaping, or in addition to vaping, so many of our young people are also going through moments of depression, moments of feeling lost, moments of feeling depressed, moments of feeling stuck. So it's important to early on have that level of communication with our children so that when they get to those moments later on in life, I was talking to one of my young men just the other day who's 27 years old, who needed spiritual encouragement, who felt like they were stuck. And my message to him was, I'm 49 and sometimes feel that I'm stuck. It doesn't go anywhere. What we do with it, how we handle, how we understand what we're going through is how we actually are able to get through it. So I was able to understand that my actions may not be clinically diagnosed as IED, but I noticed that I have a pattern when I am depressed, when I am feeling lost, when I am feeling stuck. I act out. And my act out can sometimes be impulsive because I feel so angry that I'm sad that I start to snip or snap at folks when really I'm internally snapping at myself. Does that make sense? Have you felt that way? The third video, because again, it's about tools, action plans. It gives us some simple tips to beat depression one small step at a time. One small step at a time. Let's check it out and discuss when we come back.
When we're depressed, we often don't feel like doing anything. But the less we do, the worse we tend to feel. So one of the best things we can do when we're depressed is to gradually increase our levels of activity and to get ourselves to do things sometimes, even when we really don't feel like it. And we call this behavioral activation, and it's often the first step in treating depression. And all this has to entail is to do one more thing today than we did yesterday, or that we've been doing in general. And we need to keep it simple. If we're feeling depressed and just lying in bed or on the couch and just watching TV or mindlessly surfing the internet, we just need to do one small thing to be a little more active. This can be as simple as taking a shower, or making lunch, or just going for a walk around the block. No activity is too small, and we often find whenever we do something like this, we'll start to feel a little bit better, a little less depressed, and have a little more energy, and maybe even the motivation to do something else. But we don't have to worry about going that far. All we need to do is just one small thing that we haven't been doing. If we're coming home from work and feeling depressed and just lying around and watching TV all night, then we can make plans with a friend to meet up for coffee or even dinner after work. Or go for a walk with a friend. Or take the dog for a walk. Or if we don't have friends or dogs, we can just try out a new recipe and cook something nice for ourselves. Or go for a walk by ourselves. Just anything to get ourselves off the couch or off our phones and computers and doing something a little more active than we usually do. And this is especially true on the weekends. If we're not going to work and we don't have any plans, weekends can be the most difficult time of all. So we want to make sure we have at least one thing planned every day on the weekend, so we don't end up spending most of the day in bed or just lying around on the couch, feeling more and more depressed. But if planning something feels too hard, then just have a list of things that you could do, so you're not trying to think of things from scratch on the spot. So becoming a little more active and doing a little bit more isn't a magic cure for depression, and it can sound really trivial, but it really is one of the best things we can do to improve our moods and help us start feeling a little less depressed.
Did anything resonate with you? Did anything stand out that maybe you can apply to your life when you're feeling sad, depressed, lost? What stood out for me, and I've actually done these things and they have worked, is going for a walk. I have a beautiful park in front of my building. So when I'm feeling very frustrated and I can't move because I'm in the house, I'll force myself, one, to scream and then take a walk. I've done that. That's worked. I've cleaned my house. That's worked. My girlfriends have taken me out. That's definitely worked. When I was feeling the way I did, when I took down my office and called all of my loved ones and told them I was ending my business, my girlfriend took me out for dinner the next day and helped me to appreciate what was blessed in my life. So what I realized is that I needed to just increase some of the activities in my life, because being home, I started the show talking about life during COVID, life after COVID, and these last 3 years, as I've been in this COVID life, is where I've spent more time at home than ever in my life, and this last month, it was starting to feel a little overwhelming. I'm going to explain to you a little bit more when we come back from our last PSA of the evening.
Honey, what I think you need is a socket wrench.
I played JV basketball.
I'm sorry. I don't think it looks right.
This is good, and it's all good, baby.
Is it really all good?
If you love me enough to routinely test your handyman skills, not to mention the strength of your marriage, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/therightseat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.
I'm gonna call my dad.
Man, it's lonely. Going through life's lonely.
There is the therapeutic aspect of music.
So, what is my Jesus moment? Oh, I haven't gotten that down pat yet, but it's coming. My Jesus moment is going to take you back to the scriptures. When I was doing again the research, I looked up or found Ephesians, which also was with Ephesians, which also would always help me throughout my life over the years. So in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 11, it talks about putting on the whole armor of God. One of the things that I have noticed is that everybody can give you these little tidbits and suggestions of what you can do when you're feeling depressed, when you're feeling lost, when you're feeling like there's no hope. But in all of those feelings, however you deal with it, your basis or your foundation, at least for me, has to be always my connection to Jehovah God. And because he sets us up, knowing that we are going to have ailments, knowing that we are going to have bouts of depression, he gives us that complete suit of armor that is what protects us or which helps us navigate our own feelings that we're in a struggle in. Again, it says that last video about keeping things simple. Again, a few months ago, I talked about our spirituality doesn't have to be so massive. It doesn't have to be so like grandiose when we connect to the Creator. It could be the simple things that we ask for to help guide us through. So when it talks about be strong in the Lord and in the strength or in his strength or in the strength, we gain might. So that's my Jesus moment, knowing that whenever we're going through these bouts, it's like everything else that we go through, like we learned last week, not the ups and downs, but the sideways of us in the middle is, again, not lean upon our own understanding, look to Jehovah God to give us that complete suit of armor, and look to the scriptures to guide and encourage us, because again, even though we might question how messages have been given to us, the scriptures are also there to be beneficial as a way to encourage and teach us. But what about the clinical or the psychiatric point of view? We used to have Melissa on giving her clinical point of view of what we talked about each week. But I told you last week that I was going to add a new segment because I missed that component. And there's a young woman who actually lives in my building that I have watched, I guess, not grow up, but kind of grow up. I met her about 20 years ago, and she's now almost 30, or not a little over that. But my sister girl, my neighbor, because again, it takes a village. I would love to introduce you guys to what now will be once a month, Quinelle's check-in. So check out her intro, and then we're gonna meet her in person and see what she has to say about what you're feeling or how to deal with when you're feeling depressed, lost, or in that struggle with your own self. So, hey everyone, where's our applause? Welcome, yes! Welcome Quinelle Hickman to the table, everyone. She is the owner of Counseling to Comfort P. LLC. Let's welcome Quinelle Hickman to Quinelle's Check-ins, y'all. What's good, mama?
Thank you so much for welcoming me. I'm so happy to see you, so happy to be here. So excited to talk about this topic. Cannot wait to get into it.
Okay, so I sent you the videos that I previewed with the audience throughout this show about some of the tips or where depression can come from and how you should feel, you know, when you're going through that. What did you think about what I sent you?
I thought the video videos were great. I think that, you know, when we talk about depression, and especially the intermittent explosive disorder, I think when we talk about those things, it's important to be very, very clear, to give people a clear understanding of signs and what to look for, and they really did do an amazing breakdown. So if you want a quick sort of video to understand or remember what the signs are for depression and for intermittent explosive disorder, those are two really great clips.
Cool. Okay. So you brought some research, or you brought some information that you wanted to elaborate on so that we could kind of give you the moment, give you the spotlight to kind of give your what you had me change the verbiage. She had me change psychiatric. She was like, no, we're going to talk about mental health, mental wellness. No, mental health and wellness.
Yeah.
So mental health and wellness, I'm going to give it over to you.
So the reason why I had us change is just because people get confused when they hear psychiatric, right? They might think that I'm a psychiatrist and I am a licensed therapist. And so the difference is that I do not prescribe medication. I think that medication is a very nice component to have along with talk therapy, which is what I do. But I like to think of mental health as similar to physical health. When you have an ailment, let's say diabetes, you need to take medication, but you also need to change your lifestyle a little bit, right? So I am coming in on the lifestyle component of mental health and helping you feel well.
How long have you been doing this?
I have been doing this for 10 years.
But you're only 20.
It does look like that, right? That's amazing. Yeah. So I've been doing this for a really long time, and so and they say when you're in it for 10 years, you start to move away from the textbook. So I've been very big on not speaking in terms of textbook because I want people to understand and relate to it. And so I'm very big on making mental health relatable, practical, understandable.
I connected to IED. And then I told you that I'm an extremist. So obviously when I Googled the word extremist, I'm not an extremist with Webster's dictionary. However, I do spaz out when I get depressed or when I get angry. And again, I talked about, you know, going to my God, you know, and I talked about my medication was cannabis, you know, and I am in therapy, so I am in that talk therapy kind of understanding by hearing myself say things and having her draw things out of me to kind of remember or recognize where I'm at the moment of how I'm feeling. But I wanted to see, or I wanted to hear what tips you had in particular when folks are going through moments of depression or going through moments of feeling lost. Because again, one, they feel like it's just them. Two, they feel like they can't get out of it. They don't see an ending. You know, while I was in it, I didn't see an ending. I knew there was one.
Yeah.
But at that moment, I just felt like I didn't want to die. But I wanted to pause on my purpose because I felt like my purpose wasn't moving fast enough.
Yeah. And then I have a tendency to get deep, and so now I'm like, well, what do you mean? And can I just kind of rewind on something, right? So when you talked about wanting to pause on your purpose, right? When we are talking to our friends, when we are talking to people who we feel comfortable with, or we're talking to people in passing, right? We might not realize that some of the things that we think, they are suicidal. Right? And so when you say things like pause, it could be a suicidal thought, because suicidal thoughts don't always sound like, oh, I want to kill myself. Suicidal thoughts can sound like, I'm just really tired and I want to be done with it all. Right? Or, you know, things would probably be better if I weren't here. And so, you know, just to put, I guess, a clearer sort of definition or group on things.
Because there's power in words.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the only reason why I bring that up is because, you know, we're here talking about signs to look for as well, right? So that can be a sign if you're hearing your loved one or somebody in passing say things like, you know, I don't want to die, but I want to pause, right?
Okay.
Or something like, you know, life is not working out. It's probably going to be better if I'm not here. And so those are just a few signs.
Okay.
Like I said before, I'm very big on educating, right? And so if we are talking to someone and they say something of that nature, or you realize that they really are tired, they seem drained, right? That's a sign to have you sort of check in and ask people, well, how are you doing, like for real? So I have this thing where, you know, in passing, everyone asks us, well, how are you? And we say, fine, I'm fine, because it's a habit, right? But to ask somebody, how are you doing, and then put for real at the end, it lets them know that this is a safe space in order for you to truly.
So again, the power of words.
Yes.
Not just saying how you doing, but how you doing for real. Okay.
For real, right?
You got some notes.
Yes. So, so let's say that can be one of the tips to create an open space. Let's just start there, right?
Okay.
And then once the space is opened and you know that it's free for you to speak, or you've allowed somebody else to know that you are a safe space. One of the things that I would encourage you to tell people is to make sure that, one, you pay attention to your thoughts, and then two, you pay attention to your actions, because the thoughts will sort of be the starting point of your actions. And when you're going through depression, it is like having thoughts after thought after thought on a loop, but they're all negative, right? So think about a music playlist. And every thought is like a negative song that makes you want to do something negative. And I'm saying negative because that's just how we speak. But negative could be harm yourself. Negative could be lay in bed all day. Negative can be now you're questioning your worth. You're questioning the future and if it makes sense for you to even try to be better, right? So when I say to target your thoughts, let's say that you notice that you're having one negative thought. I want you to say to yourself, stop, immediately, stop. If not stop, then we are not doing this today. Sometimes you have to talk to yourself. You're already speaking to yourself, so, you know, don't think of it as, you know, you're going crazy, so to speak. You have to be able to speak life into yourself. So the first negative thought, you're saying stop, you're saying we're not doing this, and you're gonna automatically say the opposite. So even if you do not believe the opposite, let's say your thought was, I suck, right? Your opposite is, I'm great, I'm amazing. Those affirmations you have to have something to break up that negative thought pattern. So like I was talking about before, the loop, think of it as a music playlist. If that thought, I suck, happens often, and then it goes around and around, and it not just tells you, you're not just saying I suck, but you're saying I never do anything right, you know, I'm not gonna be anything, I don't need to be here, things like that. Stop immediately, say the opposite, and then the next thing that you can do is you wanna do something to temporarily distract yourself. So that can look like music, an actual playlist that brightens up your mood to take you out of that feeling of funk or a slump. And then here's part two, where I was saying before to target your actions. So actions that you can take that are really simple. Sometimes people tell you to move and exercise, but when you have depression, that feels like so much work. So that is a goal of yours, but you want to start small. So you can do something like literally just step outside of your apartment or your home. And fresh air has a way of sort of pressing the restart button on your nerves. And every time we think something, we have a way of those feelings showing up in our body. So fresh air will literally calm your body down. And then you can take a walk if you would like to. So I want to say target the thoughts and then target your actions, but you can start off small.
I like that. I think the creating a playlist works for me. I think it works for a lot of us as women because we play Mary.
I was just about to say Mary. I was just about to say that.
Put some Mary on. And we be like, yes, and we find our way through it. I tell you, I don't know how, but she is the universal playlist to go through.
She's amazing.
She's colorblind. Like every race of women listens to her.
It
so
resonates.
she's definitely on my playlist when I'm feeling a kind of way to kind of where I'm starting at the bottom and then I'm rising to, okay, you know, cool. And I've definitely felt like I've been in a place where I, like I said, wanted to put a pause, you know what I'm saying, on my business, which was which is my purpose, you know. And I think it is important. There's something I recently heard, or I recently was connected to trigger words, and I wasn't realizing that sometimes not only incidents, but trigger words that come from even your loved ones can push you into feeling less than. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like taking grasp of, again, not allowing someone else's words or feelings to overpower how you feel about yourself in a sense, because these steps that you talked about, you know, no one's helping us through those steps. I have to go and make myself walk. I have to go and create this playlist. I have to. So even though I might have a support team, the initial movement has to come and has to start with me. But I'm sad. I don't want to move. So yes, I do talk to myself, and I do say, "All right, girl, we're not doing this today. We gotta get it together now, right?
Now.
Okay,
Ready.
okay. So stop, girl, get it together.
Get it together.
And you know what? And if I really remember, I did that. I said to myself, "All right, Kat, enough is enough. Get your life." You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because, again, it takes you back to messages that happen, you know, where you don't even realize, but because you're in that state of depression, then you can't even hear the messages that are given to you, because sometimes I think you want to stay depressed. You kind of want to have that pity party, you know what I'm saying, on you. When you feel like that, do you have any suggestions on how to get out of my way?
Yeah, so I think that the biggest thing there is really targeting the thoughts, right? And so let's say we put all of those, well, the last two tips and this next tip together, right? So when you are targeting your thought, you have to make sure, when you're targeting your thoughts, you have to make sure that you are telling yourself to stop. Then you act in a way that is going to be helpful for you. And remembering that even if you don't want to do something, right, it doesn't mean that that is going to be the most effective thing for you to do, right? So this next sort of question that I want you to ask yourself is, well, how come? How come I'm not moving? How come I don't want to move? And that will probably lead you down that whole sort of list of negative thoughts that I was talking about before. But when you get to the very last negative thought, I want you to ask yourself, and what if it goes way better? What if it goes way better? Like, how do you know? So it's possible that it can go terrible. It's possible that the future will be, you know, very, very bad for you. But it is also possible that things can go well. But when you're stuck in that space that you were talking about, you just don't ask yourself the other question. And so even if you have to write a note to yourself, wherever you remember things, if you put it on your fridge, if you put it on your phone, I want you to type out or write out to ask yourself, but what if it goes well?
Wow. What if it goes well?
What if?
And the crazy thing is, 9.5 times out of the 10, it does go well. It does go better. Once I get out of my own way, I think, so I was in this funk on a Friday. By Wednesday, I was out of it. You know what I'm saying? And then when I got out of it Thursday, I came to the studio, had a great show, had a great weekend. Like it was like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna keep you around.
I think
you made some valid points, okay? And it's funny because, you know, the last sister that I had that kind of gave, you know, a mental health check-in was Melissa. And one of the reasons why me and Melissa worked so well is because there was the dynamics of this white perspective and the black perspective. And, you know, there was a few times that I talked about being a racist or being prejudiced. And we always hear that black people say that they can't, you know, be racist because they don't have power, right? But I said, but I have power because in therapy, I'm choosing not to use a white girl as my therapist. I'm choosing for a black woman to be. So as well as beautiful as Melissa was and insightful, because she gave some solid advice each week, I feel extremely blessed to have a woman of color now give the check-in to our mental health and wellness each month. So yes, welcome again.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I want the people to know, though, you've been doing this 10 years.
Yes.
And you're 16. What made you get into the mental health wellness arena? Like, you live in a village building. You come from a 2-parent household. You got 1 or 2 siblings. Like it looks like you come from a pretty charm on the outside life. What traumatic happened to you that you was like, I want to help people? Like,
yeah. Well, for me, right, watching my family and listening to what they told me, I saw a couple of things, right? So for me in my house, it was fine to talk about emotions in my house. But don't you step outside these doors and tell our business. That's what you're not going to do, right? And so keeping that in mind and then interacting with friends and families and jobs, and I would just see, you know, there are some places that you can be and your behavior makes sense, right? But then you go to another place and it doesn't make sense, like a child in school. Because I used to work with kids, and I would tell some of the parents how their child was behaving. Some parents would say, "Oh, they do that all the time, no worries." And then another parent would say, "They did what?" And I would notice a lot of times, you know, like 2-parent households, the reaction was different. I thought about my household, I thought about some of my friends' homes, and I just thought, you know, we could help the youth by helping the families and really the parent structure.
That makes sense because that's definitely my platform. I'm always wanting to start at the youth component. You know, we as adults, you know, eventually we do get the light bulb moment, and sometimes we still decide not to use the light bulb moment in our day-to-day actions with our family, with our children, with each other. And sometimes we get it and we, you know, transform that into our household with our children. I felt that when I got the light bulb moment, again, coming from the same black household as, yeah, we can talk about it inside, but once it leaves this house, you better not. And because, you know, my children had a 2-parent household, they came from they eventually ended up in 2 separate households, still having both parents. And both households are very different, where one household is, yes, we can talk, but definitely keep everything inside. And then you got this 920 household where, yeah, we talk it, but then I'm around all the neighbors and like, you know, Isaiah did this, you know, Isha did this. And I was like, no, I'm not keeping nothing secret. And it was like it was a weird, not balanced situation because it was one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
But what I realized over the years was, as much as I thought it was extreme, it still gave them both perspective. So now as 19, 25, and 27-year-olds, you know, they definitely know how to keep things within their house, their intimate structure, their intimate, close family dynamics, but they're not afraid to discuss things openly.
Yeah.
Even though I think my son is, because as a teacher, you know what I'm saying, I feel like he needs therapy. And he still hasn't done it, talking about his insurance. But I wouldn't believe that, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, you 25, bro, you about to explode on these parents, these kids, administration, something. But we're getting there.
Yeah.
And it's a constant conversation where I am like, did you find a therapist today? Did you find a therapist today? Did you look up a therapist today? Did you check your insurance? Because I'm not gonna let it go. Because I understand that if it's not now, at 25, You know what I'm saying? Maybe at 30 you'll take those steps. And then what happens is, as you learn the skills as a teacher, as a young woman, as a future wife, as a employee, whatever routes they take, they'll be able to deal with the tools of feeling frustrated when they become frustrated, as they will be. So when you started out working with families, or you started out seeing the need to work with families, how did it get into relationships?
So when I was looking at families, I would notice that, you know, the biggest issues are when the kids start becoming the parents. And it was like, okay, I still do family work, by the way, but I'm just talking about my preference, right? But when I noticed that the kids were becoming the parents, I said, okay, let me do some sessions with the parents. And a lot of times it's just communication, right? Getting parents on the same page. And if your communication is not working well when we're talking about parenting, it's not working well when we're talking about us as a couple. Forget us as parents, right? Because we have different roles in life. And so that's how I got into the couples.
Okay. And how has social media played a part? Because COVID happened, 3 years, people weren't seeing each other in person. Did you, because you're 16, did you adapt with the whole TikTok, IG? Like, how did you conform your practice to social media?
Yeah, so my practice started during the pandemic. I was working at a separate private practice, and then I opened my own. So I absolutely started on social media. And it's been an interesting ride, just making sure that I am consistent, making sure that I'm current. And that goes to the business side, which is a whole different topic on a whole other day. But social media has been extremely helpful in my progression. But you can't forget outlets like regular media, like television. You can't forget outlets like publications, magazines, and you cannot forget the person-to-person, going door to door, doing the cold calls still, making sure that, you know, you're getting the word out about your business.
Wow, so you're actually cold calling?
Yes.
I know that's right. And I know I played along and said she's 16, but we all can see she is a grown-ass woman. You know what I'm saying? And I think what's interesting about the young perspective is that I hate it, but I absolutely love it. My 19-year-old has probably been one of the smartest fucking person I've met in the last few years. She got so much G and so much insight, it's disgusting. You want to slap her because she's like, you're 19, but she drops some major jewels. And when it comes to like the entire, I'm going to say this, when it comes to the entire family, from her father to her grandmother to me, we all freaking call her. You know what I'm saying? So there is something about the young perspective, I think that we can all benefit from, because I think, you know, we think, oh, I'm grown, you can't tell me nothing. Girl, I'm 50. What you gonna tell me, youngin'? You know what I'm saying? But you could probably school me to something that I haven't yet thought about because I'm stuck in my own understanding of what I was taught at 20. And what I was taught at 20 may not necessarily be serving me well at 50.
Yeah.
So thank you, Quinelle.
Thank you.
How was your first check-in moment?
I'm excited to come back. I absolutely love talking about depression, also anxiety and couples communication. So
well, we ain't gonna always be talking about depression.
I'm aware,
okay.
Right? But for this to be my first one was nice, because I love to talk about this.
So give the audience your last little feedback and check-ins, where they can find you. What if they want your help? Because this is free, but this is still a business, okay? So plug the business.
Yes, if you would like to speak to me more, you want couples counseling or individual counseling, you can reach out to me at www.counselingtocomfort.com. And you can also follow me on Instagram at counselingtocomfort_PLLC.
So that was another episode of The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray. So now, this is what I want you guys to do. Quinelle will be back next month. So that's 4 weeks, okay? 4 weeks for you to go to the Facebook group page and have some questions lined up for her, because she gave you the information for her business, because this is a business. However, she is committed to giving you all 30 minutes of free advice each month. So take full advantage of that opportunity. Where else are you going to get free therapy for 30 minutes from somebody that looks like you, that got some common sense that you can rock with? So come back next month to Quinelle's check-in and give her something to talk about or to answer that you might want to talk about. That you not want to talk about, that you want her to answer on air for you, because you can't talk to us directly. Now we are at my most favorite part of the show. You know I hate this part, but I need this part, and this is the like, follow, and share. We are doing a community service on public access television, but we need your support to grow this message of healing, because that's what the next chapter is about. As I'm going through these next chapters of my life, we're all going through these next chapters that we need constant inspiration, constant refortification of knowing that it's okay, that you got this, that things are happening, but you're covered by the Creator, because you are one of His righteous children out here. And I try to show by my example the benefits of what service looks like. Don't just take my advice. Look at my life. Look at the life of the guests that I have come on, you guys, that come on this show each week and share their stories with you. Everybody looks like you. And each week you hear stories of situations that we're all facing, but in face of it, we are showing you and giving you the tools on how we get out of it, so that you too can get out of it as you go through these next chapters of your life. So once again, I thank you for joining me this week. Check me out on my Facebook group page, IG, YouTube, all that good stuff. You know I Am You is coming up. August show, August 26th in Harlem, everyone. I Am You is coming to the Dwyer Cultural Center. Until then, continue to be safe, continue to be focused, and do not lean upon your own understanding, because we have the support to help us and guide us through these next chapters where we discuss shades of gray. I am your host, Minister Kat, a.k.a. Kitty Rose, and I appreciate you guys. I see you next week. Stay tuned. Mwah. Bye. Did I not get cut off yet? Why is my applause?
Mutual. If it seems we get busy, it's cause we actually do. Take a look into my eyes, let them take you to the side. Meet my ride or die, Shay and I. Thankful for my sisters by my side who held me down during dark times. Many train rides I took to get $1 for a rhyme. A luggage in the sign, me while on my mind. I'm thinking I should be on my prime. It ain't easy, but regardless, I'ma thrive. It's that spirit in me, NYC baby. Gucci Frito on the corner, but we stay hungry. First come loyal. Real life, great from the heart of the city, is as hard as it gets. This that New York shit. That real life, great from the heart of the city, is as hard as it gets. This that New York shit. That real life, great from the heart of the city, is as hard as it gets.